Hello, my name is Ishar and I'm an INFP personality type. In this talk, what I want to go over is how to find the ideal city for yourself as an INFP personality. So I've moved around quite a lot in my life, almost every few years to different cities and countries, different states as well. And I figured, through the process, I discovered what I liked and what I didn't like about each city. And also being an INFP myself, I'll provide you with some guidance on what to look for when considering a city to live in. And I realized that the ideal city is subjective because what I might like in a city, another person might not like. So, what I'll do instead is provide you with different tools that you can look at and consider when choosing a city so you can decide for yourself. Because if you recall, for INFPs, our dominant cognitive function is introverted feeling. And this is a subjective function that all INFPs have. So, we need to really make our decisions on our own and really trust our own power and guidance. So, I'll be providing you with some tools so you can decide for yourself rather than saying, okay, you need to move to this city, which isn't really helpful. So, what is the first factor to look at? The main thing you want to look at is number one, finding a city that is low stimulus. So, what do I mean by this? So, there are certain cities that are a bit more chaotic in nature and that maybe bombard your senses. Manhattan is one example of this, where the minute you step into Manhattan, there's loud sounds around you, people honking their horns in traffic. There's a lot of lights and things to see, and people are rushing in and out. So this can be very taxing and emotionally draining for many INFPs and introverts. And the reason why is because introverts are a bit more sensitive to the neurotransmitter dopamine compared to extroverts. So, dopamine is responsible for motivation and also seeking stimulus from the external environment. So, it goes outside to look for things. And this makes sense because a lot of extroverts are constantly looking outside and they seek fulfillment through doing things. So your extroverted friend that's very social and they want to try new things may find cities like Manhattan really exciting because, they have tons of things to do, there's a lot of things going on, and they feel very stimulated. However, for INFPs and other introverts, we need a bit more calming environments because we have a lower threshold of dopamine compared to extroverts. So what this means is that, when you go to a very chaotic environment in a chaotic city and a busy city, you will feel very drained. So your energy kind of just gets sapped out of you. And this is something, I noticed a lot whenever I went to very busy cities. I just felt very tired after a few hours. And this wasn't because, I hadn't eaten or slept or anything like that, because, it was perfectly fine that day, but I just felt very drained. And it's because your senses are completely getting bombarded. So when choosing a city, try to find a city that, still has things going on, but doesn't overwhelm you or is in your face with a lot of things like sounds and colors and sights and all that as well. Now, the second thing to look for is to find a city that is friendly. So although we are introverts as INFPs, we are warm and friendly as introverts. So we actually do like people, and it's just that we have a social battery. So we still get drained and we need our time to recover and our me time. However, we still like people. We're very social in nature. So INFPs really need that social connection, and I've noticed this isn't the same with a lot of introverts because, my ISTJ dad and my ISTP cousin, for example, have often told me that their ideal vacation would be going away for like 4 weeks and into like a cabin where they don't talk to anyone, and that's their ideal vacation. So that's how they see it. And the best thing that could happen in life is if they went away for a while and didn't talk to anyone. This is not the case with INFPs because we actually like human connection. So we need to find a city where people are just generally friendly. We don't like really rude places or places where people are closed off. And intuitively, we really understand this because people have kind of understood that certain cities are a bit more warmer compared to other cities that are a bit more reserved in nature. So, for example, you may have heard the phrase the Seattle freeze when describing Seattle, because many people who visit the Pacific Northwest notice that people tend to be a bit more icy or cold or closed off, if you will. And this is just off first impressions. So, just walking down the street, you may notice that people are a bit more closed off. So, that's an example of a city that's a bit less warm, at least initially. And for example, there's a stereotype that in the United States that if you go towards the south, like Texas, where I live, people are a bit more friendly and they'll strike random conversations with you. And this is something I actually noticed myself moving from New Jersey, the East Coast, which is known for being a bit more cold in nature, coming to Austin. What what's surprising to notice is, I'd be out and about in grocery stores and people randomly start conversations with me. So this is an example of a warmer city. So as an INFP, you want to find a city that's a bit more friendly, more social, because we really like that social connection. Now, we don't need to go to a party central kind of city or anything like that, but we we want that social connection, and we'll feel really lonely and isolated if we don't have that. Because as much as we think we're like the independent loner types, like ISTPs, we're really not like that. We go crazy if we don't have that social connection. Now, the next thing to look for is things to do. So we like adventure and different ideas and possibilities we can pursue. The reason why is that we have our extroverted intuition function as our second function right after introverted feeling. So, extroverted intuition is all about looking outside oneself to look for possibilities and ideas. So, it's very exploratory in nature. And it's also a very optimistic function, likes to branch out and just look out for new things. So if you live in a very small town or considering a small town, and this may not be the best fit, because what will happen is if you have visited every single restaurant or every single bar or any other thing that is going on in that city, and you've seen it all in within a few weeks, well, then you'll start to get bored and antsy, and you'll be like, I need to do something. And this doesn't mean you need more stimulus and more things to do, but rather you want to be in a city that at least provides you with some opportunities to explore. Because as INFPs, we simply just like exploring different things. So this is one way to do this. And then along the same lines, another thing you can ask yourself is, can I grow here in a city? So growth is also another factor. Because again, our extroverted intuition function likes to consider possibilities that are not yet actualized. So it's a forward thinking, forward moving function that looks at possibilities that aren't here right now. So you have to ask yourself, can I see myself in this city in the next 5 years? Or maybe in the next 10 years? And if the answer is no, maybe this is not the best city for you. And you may be wondering, okay, well, doesn't everyone think like that? Actually, no. Some people are just so in the present moment that they aren't really thinking a few steps ahead, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to take it as it comes. And there are also other people that don't really care for a meaning behind the city. They're just like, okay, I'm just going to live here, do my work, and blah, blah. So they don't have a deeper meaning. However, that's just not how INFPs are. We like to have a certain deeper meaning, or at least something that leads to something else when we live in a city. So there needs to be a bigger picture behind why we move. I mean, we are called the dreamers for a reason. So we like to dream up different possibilities. And what's the big picture behind me being in a city? Can it support my growth? Can I grow here? And does this city provide the resources so I can do that? So that's one thing to think about. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is your ideal city should also have a touch of weirdness. And the reason why is that as INFPs, we are anything but conventional. We are the dreamers, we're the artists, we're the poets, we're the philosophers of the world. So likewise, we want to find a city to live in that supports that and reflects that. So one of the reasons why I liked living in San Francisco, for example, and now Austin, was because it had a lot of weird people in there, people that didn't have the conventional kind of lifestyle. They were a bit more open-minded, and they were not afraid to break out of the box every once in a while. And this is something I liked about these cities. On the other hand, I also lived in a city that was the exact opposite. I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, and over there wasn't much to do beyond go to your 9 to 5 job, and maybe there's some clubs and golfing, which I wasn't really into, and this maybe the gym, which again I wasn't that much into either. So there wasn't much to do there. Oh, sure, you can argue, okay, there's like nature and occasional hikes, but I wanted something a bit more. And this is something you may be looking for as an INFP, is to meet like-minded individuals, because what you'll find is like a city is like much like a mirror. It like reflects the other people that are in it. So you definitely want to find a city that is just like you, very complementary to you. So just as a recap of some of these points that I've gone over, you want to find a city that is a bit more lower stimulus, but then again also has the potential for adventures and to explore, and also a friendly and warm city. You also want to look for a city that supports your growth, either short term or long term, and has like a bigger picture, and you can see why you're there. And lastly, it needs to be a bit quirky or a bit weird to match your personality. And those are some guidelines I've come up with, and you can use these pointers to look at different cities. And Obviously, your criteria will be a bit different, but these are just different guides and tools you can use to find your ideal city as an INFP personality type. So what I'd like to know in the comments is, where do you currently live and what cities are you currently considering? And would you move out of your current city?